He goes, I can't wait till Brett Favre gets here. I'm going to hand shiver him. I go, what? He goes, yeah, I'm going to hit him. He took away my sack. I go, Mark, what are you talking about? I said, you can't do that. He goes, I'm going to do it. I said, Mark, it's not going to be beneficial to you.
What's up, everybody? I'm Peanut Tillman, and this is the NFL Players Second Acts podcast. And with me, as always, my choice co-host, Roman Harper.
What's up, Peanut, man? Look, I'm really excited about this one. Number one, he's a former Alabama great, all-time legend. Got to watch this man from afar for a very long time. And now this is my first actual time really getting to meet him and sit down and talk with him. I can't wait to let our viewers and listeners get to hear this great man's story.
He's an 11-year vet, all with the Jets. Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner. He's in the Jets Ring of Honor, and he is the Senior Vice President of Marketing and PR at Lantech. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the pod, Marty Lyons.
Yes.
Pod. Welcome to the pod. And Master Storyteller. Master Storyteller. I should have added that to the resume.
He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He's also considered to be one of the greatest players in Alabama's football history as well.
Considered, let's just say he is.
Well, it's just a whole bunch of them.
There's a lot of guys that
take it. Say you are.
It's a bunch of them. So,
hey, you've heard it on our podcast, Marty Lyons, the greatest Crimson Tide Alabama football player ever. I just said it.
Okay, well, good. Thank you.
I'll put it out there.
That leads me right to my first one. I hear about it all the time. I get to hear the rumbled and mumbled voice on the Jumbotrons on Saturdays in Tuscaloosa of Bear Bryant. What was it like playing for the Bear?
Yeah, well, Roman, I think any player that played for Coach Bryant would address him as Coach Bryant. We never said Bear Bryant. I think Coach Bryant cared about his players more as individuals than actual football players. Mm-hmm. When I got there in 1975, walking in there with not knowing anybody, and there's 30 freshmen from around the country, and I was all state in 3 sports. The guy next to me was all state in 4 sports. So Coach Bryant had the pick. And he walked into the room. He said, there's 4 things I want you to accomplish while you're here. Number 1, always be proud of your family. Number 2, always be proud of your religion. Number 3, get an education. Number 4, if we have time, let's win some football games. Mm. So he took 30 individuals and blended us together as a team and as a family. And we went on to win 1 national championship, 3 SEC titles, and only lose 6 games. So I think Coach Bryant prepared us that when the game ended for each and every one of us, we could go on and be active in our community and be successful.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that national championship. So in 79, you guys were at the Sugar Bowl. I believe it was here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Sugar Bowl, it was here. And there's a famous 4th and goal, right? The quarterback for Penn State, Chuck Facina.
Right.
Did you ask him, or did you tell him that he should throw the ball on that 4th and short?
It wasn't. I wasn't trying to be a smartass or anything.
How did it come out? Was it like,
came out? We were over there by the official,
right?
And Chuck said to the official, "How far is it?" And the official went about like that, and he looked at me like, "So what should we do?" I go, "You better throw the ball." And if they had thrown the ball, they might have scored. But it was a perfect play.
Yeah.
Defensively, all the defensive linemen, we got the penetration. Barry Krause came over the top. Rich Wingo came from the side. Mike Clemens, who was a corner, came off the corner. As the running back started to jump, he grabbed him around the waist, so there was no momentum. Mm-hmm. And you talk about winning the national championship with a goal line stand and everybody,
it's iconic.
11 players on the same page. And it really started with Ken Donahue, the defense coordinator, calling in that play. We were so prepared getting ready to go down to play Penn State. We knew down and distance which side of the ball. And Coach Paterno had the same philosophy as Coach Bryant. If we can't run the ball 1 yard, pick up a first down or score, we don't deserve to win. So we knew right away that they were going to try to run the ball.
It wasn't even close.
No, that picture is up on a lot of walls.
Yeah, a lot of walls.
A lot of places. That was how I first got to know and hear your name, you and Mr. Krause. And so, that was the play. that won the national championship for Alabama on the fourth and one stop. So it's been amazing. It's just really cool to actually hear from your story. That's why we said he's a great storyteller.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear this story. What was your welcome to the NFL moment back when the NFL was like the NFL?
Well, I think my welcome moment, you go out with all the vets after practice and they'll take you to a bar. And the next thing you know, everybody's ordering drinks, they're ordering shots, or ordering food. And then you go to the bathroom and you come out and nobody's there. And the bartender gives you the bill.
Yeah.
First thing you do is you pay the bill, but you don't complain about it.
Uh-huh.
And then you kind of become one of them.
True.
And walking out of the weight room, I think it was the first week of training camp, I run into Joe Klecko, and it's Joe Klecko's team.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, hey, Rook, where are you going? I said, I just got done working out, Joe. I'm leaving. He goes, no, you're not. He goes, you need to get stronger. He goes, from now on, you don't leave this complex until I leave. I went, okay, Joe. And I started to walk off and he grabbed me again. And he goes, did you hear what I said? So I was very fortunate. Joe took me underneath his wing.
Yeah.
And I went in there. I had to get stronger. I got stronger with Joe. And, our opening game, we were playing the Cleveland Browns. And I was, at that time, playing defensive end rather than defensive tackle. So I lined up against Ozzie Newsome. Mm-hmm. And Ozzie and I were friends from college. And, he had that, he would get down in that 3-point stance and he'd be real low and he'd look up at me. He goes, hey, homie, how you doing? And just as I answered him, they snapped the ball. He hooked me and ran for 15 yards. So I knew, that's not the way to do it. And then the second game we played New England and we were down 35-3 at halftime and we lost 56-3. Ooh. And it was the worst beating I'd ever taken. And I got back on the plane and, at that time the rookies sat in the middle of the plane and the veterans were in the back. And I look in the back and these guys are playing cards, drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, smoking cigars. And I go, aren't you guys embarrassed? And that was welcome to the NFL. Don't get caught up in what we did last week, what we did this week, because the next week you got to get ready to play again.
Yeah.
And, we were able to turn it around in the early 80s and started to get the leadership that we needed and made it to an AFC championship game down there in Miami. And we lost, 14-0. Richard Todd, who was so instrumental in getting us there, had a bad day at quarterback. He threw 5 interceptions. And, the funny thing about it, I was good friends with Richard because he played at Alabama. And we went out to dinner right after the game, a couple of days later, and his mom was there, and his mom was a Southern lady, and out of nowhere, she goes, I love seeing Richard play football. No matter where he throws it, somebody's going to catch it. I looked at Richard, and he goes, no, Mom, that's not the right thing to say right now.
So I've been fortunate enough being in Chicago, being on some dominant defenses, right? The history of Chicago, they're known for their defenses. The New York Sack Exchange, phenomenal defense. What are some of your favorite memories being on that?
Well, it wasn't, we'd go into a game, it wasn't, hey, are we going to get to the quarterback? It was how many times we were going to get there, how many times we were going to hit them.
Yeah.
When you have 2 edge rushers, one being Joe Klecko and the other being Mark Gastineau, Abdul and I, all we had to do was tie up the 2 guards in the center because they couldn't double team both of them.
Right.
And we had an excellent back 7. The linebackers were excellent. The secondary gave us enough time.
I love that.
And
you giving the DBs some love.
Well, you know what?
Rush and cover.
I appreciate that.
If they don't work hand in hand, it's not going to work. And we were fortunate that that year we got 66 sacks and everybody got their share. But you look at Mark and Joe, they were both in the 20s. And it's a moment you look back on and you're very thankful that you were a part of.
So, number one, who came up with the sack exchange? I know, the stock exchange is in New York. Who came up with it?
You know what? I always thought it was Pepper Burrs. He was our assistant trainer, but they actually ran a contest. And somebody thought of the New York Stock Exchange. Why don't we say New York Sack Exchange? And then all of a sudden it happened.
Oh.
And then we got a shoe deal and everybody, we were signing posters. And I believe that in the beginning, they only wanted 2 people. They only wanted Joe and Mark.
Right.
And Joe went to the people and said, hey, you know what? And this is with the shoe contract. Said, if you don't do all 4 of them, I'm out. So actually, Joe Klecko negotiated my first shoe contract in the NFL.
Did you see that when Gastineau saw Brett Favre?
I was there.
You were there.
I told him not to do it.
Oh.
It was. To be honest with you, it was premeditated.
Oh, okay.
You know how when you go to these shows, you have to.
What are you talking about?
The whole Brett Favre. Well, Brett Favre fell down and let Strahan get the sack record.
Oh,
he broke Mark Gastineau's record. He just I was like, I think he's serious.
He goes, I can't wait till Brett Favre gets here. I'm going to hand shiver him. I go, what? He goes, yeah, I'm going to hit him. He took away my sack. I go, Mark, what are you talking about? I said, you can't do that. He goes, I'm going to do it. I said, Mark, it's not going to be beneficial to you. And all of a sudden, Brett Favre walks by. And I see Mark's wife. They walk in there. I walk around the backside just to make sure nothing was going to happen.
Yeah, right. You had to have somebody.
And Mark said to him, hey, you know what? You hurt me. You hurt me. I want my sack back. And I'm looking at him like, Brett Favre's looking at him like, hey, whoa, what's going on here? And it went down, and then I went over to talk to Brett because I had met him when he was playing with the Jets. I was doing the radio.
Yeah.
And I apologized for Mark. And he said, man, I thought I was going to have to throw down on him. He goes, man, I looked in his eyes, man. He goes, he is lost.
Yeah.
But Mark says he beats to his own drum.
I saw a story, and I can't wait to hear your version of this. You were once penalized for giving a quarterback the business. That's what the referee did. Gotta tell me what happened on the play, because I didn't see the play. I just saw the penalty, and the referee was very demonstrative in his whatever you were doing to give him the business.
Well, I was, the buildup between the Jets and Buffalo Bills, you know, and we were aging out the defensive line, and I think middle of the week, Jim Kelly said he wasn't worried about the pass rush or anything. So in the first quarter, he was going out of bounds, and I hit him, and he got up. He threw the ball at me. And I went back. I went back at Jim. I got my ass kicked because I was on their sideline. And right before halftime, he rolled out, threw the ball. I hit him. I'm laying on top of him. He says some ugly things to me about being on top of him, and then I just started pounding him. And the first thing I did after, as a sign of respect to Jim, it was something that happened on the field.
Yeah.
I have the utmost respect for Jim Kelly. I patted him on the helmet. He patted me on the helmet. And if you go back and you look at it, I'm bleeding from, I think it was this side, the left hand, right hand side. And later I would find out that Jim Kelly said that his index finger, he would always leave that nail a little bit longer, so when he threw the ball, he could spin it off that nail. Well, he came through my face mask and kind of cut me, and I just hit him a few times.
Yeah, I saw you guys pat each other on the helmet though afterwards, so you guys made up very quickly.
Oh no,
and Jim Kelly's not the only guy at quarterback that keeps the nail. We found out Warren Moon does the same thing. I didn't know that was.
I didn't either. And again, Jim Kelly, Hall of Fame quarterback. He could have been a Hall of Fame linebacker. He had that same mentality.
Yeah.
Same as, Phil Simms. Mm-hmm. We used to love to play against the Giants because Phil was so vocal to his offensive line if they missed a block.
Yeah.
And we would say, hey, you know what? Like Billy R., don't take that, man. Just open the gates. We'll take care of them, But
hopefully that worked out for y'all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you retired, you got into radio. I've done radio. Utmost respect. It is something very difficult to do. I don't think people know that. You've been doing it and you did it. How did you get involved with being the Jets?
Well, I first started off in TV.
Okay.
And doing college games. And you're making $500 a game.
Yeah.
By the time they take taxes out, by the time you travel. So you do it to stay, for me, to stay visible in the community. Mm-hmm. And then to see whether I really liked it. And then I started working, doing the Jets TV show called Jet Journal. So, you're just taping, they can cut, they can edit, you can do whatever you want. And then the Jets radio job came up. And I had built a resume where being a Jet, living in New York, it was something to do. And I remember working with Al Troudwick, and he's from MSG and NBC. He said, when you do radio, pretend you're talking to a blind person. He said, you're painting a picture. You don't always have to be right. Paint the picture. So I did for the Jets for 22 years. And unfortunately, there was a time for a change. I went into a new role, but I always try to be respectful to the players as a former player. But I had a responsibility to the listener. Mm-hmm. If you missed a tackle, I had to point that out. If you didn't hold containment, I had to point that out. To me, that's not being negative. That's being honest.
Yeah.
And, I had the pleasure of working with Bob Wischusen, who does a lot of work with ESPN. And we enjoyed doing it. I think we were complimentary to both. You have to have that chemistry. You don't want to step on him. He didn't want to step on me. And I really did enjoy it. I got to know the players a little bit better. Got to see the game differently too, because you got to react real quick on what happened on that play. And being the color person, I was just there to say why it worked, why it didn't work, and why are you calling that play on 3rd and 1, and you're inside the 20, and you know what? You have 3 all-pro players, a guard and 2 guards in the center, and why are you trying to throw the ball? Run it. It's
Yeah.
But it was fun, and we had an 85% approval rate by the fans, so. I think the fans appreciated it. And again, everything that I was doing up there in New York enabled me to stay visible with the community and with the fans.
What's one of your favorite calls?
Oh, that was exactly
my favorite call.
What's one of the best calls you've ever made?
Well, you got to remember the play-by-play guy makes the best calls.
Well, your analysis.
I remember when the Jets were playing Seattle and they moved the ball right down the field. And it was like 4th and about 6 inches. Mm-hmm. And they were inside the 5-yard line. And then you had Nick Mangold as a guard, and you had 2 all-pro guards. And I was saying then, this is a perfect opportunity to run the ball. And Eric Mangini was the head coach.
Yeah.
And he kicked the field goal. And I just couldn't understand it.
Did you lose it?
A little bit. Put it this way, Roman. They knocked on the door and said, hey, you know what? Hey, let's cut it out a little bit. But if you look at the way the game played out, the second half, they never crossed the 50-yard line. You got to get points when you can get points. But I'm telling you, it was less than 6 inches. You got all you have to do nowadays is get the quarterback to go underneath the center and fall forward. You're going to pick that up.
Yeah.
And the Jets decided to kick the field goal, which, to this day, I don't think was the right move.
Were you there for the butt fumble?
I was when Mark Sanchez.
Yes.
On Thanksgiving.
Yes. So tell me, what was that like? I gotta know that.
Give us that call.
That was New England scoring. I think they scored 2 touchdowns in less than 14 seconds.
Right. They did.
They did.
Yes.
But Mark went to hand off the ball, and nobody was there, so he went to run, and New England had made the penetration, and he ran into the back of his offensive guard and fumbled the ball. New England picks it up. They run it in for a touchdown. Then the Jets kick off. They fumble the ball. New England picks it up, and they run it in again. It was a typical Thanksgiving dinner that the Jets just gave the Patriots. It was.
I think I want to listen to that game.
I would love to, like, when you're up there and you see it. What I know, your guys making the call, but how do you describe the why to that?
Roman, you just look and you're baffled. You go, I can't describe what just happened, but for all you listeners, Mark just stuck the ball up his offensive guard's butt and the ball fumbled. And, it was funny. It was funny now that you look back on it.
Right, yeah. But I can only imagine.
I can only imagine being in the booth. Like, how do I even explain what just happened?
Like, there's no way to explain. That's all right. So let's talk about what you did now post, and it's probably something you've been doing, had your little hands into already, and that was Lantech,
right?
Where you guys either help build fields, athletic facilities, or you also, I saw you teamed up with Arthur Blank, and you guys help
the surface,
the surface, help level them back out. Sorry,
right.
Level all the some HBCU fields out in Alabama and in Georgia.
In Georgia, I think what Arthur Blank did is tremendous to donate. The amount of money that he did, and then the NFL got involved, and they chose Lantech as the contractor of choice. So we went down there and looked at the facilities, and it was a shame that here it was in 2024, athletes coming out of these programs and nobody being able to update their facilities. So we went down there, we took 2 synthetic fields and redid those and put in new turf. And then we took 2 natural grass fields and converted them over to synthetic grass. But a lot of thanks to Arthur Blank and the, historical Black colleges and universities. They need to be addressed by more owners.
Yeah.
Because the owners are pulling athletes out of their programs, but the facilities are just, they're really dated. When I retired, I went back. I tried to get into coaching 3 times. One with Bruce Coslett. Sorry, you're too close to the team. The second time was with Pete Carroll. He said, you really don't want to coach. He goes, you want to help this organization? Go to the PR department. Tell us how our players can get more active in the community. I go, Pete, I don't have to tell people how to do that. They have to want to do that.
Right.
And then the third time I tried was with Richie Kotite. And, Richie thank God I didn't get on that staff because I would have been fired after 2 years. He went 1-15, and then I think he went 3-13. And then on strike 3, I went back to school. And I got my security license and spent 5 years over at Payne Weber. I got my Series 65, 63, all the license. Went in there, pretty successful there. But it's hard to ask friends to give me your money so I can invest it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, compliance also came into play because I had outside activities that I was making money, doing speaking engagements, doing the Jets TV show, and they wanted me to disclose how much money I was making outside of Payne Weber. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And after 5 years at Payne Weber, I went to the Lantech group. Lantech they build and design athletic fields. That's all they do, athletic field construction, from building fields, tracks, bleachers, lights, you name it, we'll do it. At that time, they were probably 6.2, 6.4 million in the late 2000. And last year we closed out at just under 300 million. So the company's growing. The owners were young, energetic guys. And they said, Marty, you know what? We need your help. You can, and the good thing about working with the Lantech group is I could always schedule my meetings. If I'm meeting with you two, I want to meet with you on Friday. So you're going to ask me, okay, what can you do to help me build a better facility? But you're also going to say, as football fans, hey, how about the Jets this week?
Yeah.
So I'm mixing one with the other. And if I don't meet with you on Friday, I'll meet with you on Monday. And then we'll talk about what we can do to help your facility. And then they look at me and they go, hey, what happened to the Jets? It's always what happened.
Always what happened.
When are they going to turn this thing around? And I go, you know what? Be honest with you, I don't know. It's difficult on the broadcasters doing the same team, and the team is out of the playoffs by Thanksgiving.
That is tough.
It's tough.
It's hard to talk.
And you always try to stay positive. You always try to put the spin on it. But I think that, you look at the Jets, they got some guys that can really play, but you're going to have to keep them. Sauce Gardner, one of the best corners I've seen since Darrelle Revis. One of the best wide receiver, Garrett Wilson.
Great young player.
Great young player. How are the Jets going to keep him?
I don't know.
And that is the key now. How do you keep the key players? And how do you spread the money around? And how do you make everybody happy? I don't know if it's possible to do that. They try to shuffle the money in one direction, and then it comes to another. But when we all know you have a limited time in the NFL.
Right.
Whether it's your choice or their choice.
Mm-hmm.
And more than likely, it could be their choice.
Yeah.
So you want to make the money when you can. So there is no hometown discount anymore.
No.
I don't care whether you drafted me in the first round. I signed that long 5-year contract, or 4-year with the option in the 5th.
The team's option.
Yeah, the team. And then if you're not winning, you want to go someplace to win. That's it,
As Herm said it, you played this game to win.
Yeah. And I tell you what, Herm Edwards was one of the best guys I ever worked with.
Yeah.
Up there doing the TV show. I'd ask him a question and he'd put that leg up on the desk. He goes, "Come on, coach, you know that. You know that. You know that guy ain't tough. You know he ain't lining up on Sunday." The honesty that they showed myself and the respect that they showed, it was like you and I having a conversation.
Yeah.
But come Sunday, you know what you can use and you know what not to use.
Yeah.
And if you break that trust, I'm not going to tell you anything else going on in this season.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to pivot on something else, on some foundation work. I know Rome and I, we both have our foundations, and you do some incredible things with your foundation. I know you help kids who are 3 to 17 who are battling or have been diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Terminal illness or chronic life-threatening disease. I started in 1982. We had just come from the AFC Championship game, which we lost.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest son was born on March 4th. Suddenly, my dad passed away of a massive heart attack on March 8th. A little boy that I was a big brother to passed away on March 10th. A matter of 6 days, and Keith was only 5.5. He went from the ultimate high to the ultimate low, and I really felt at that time God was punishing me. He was saying, I couldn't understand how you could bless me with a son and then take away 2 people I love. And I said, what am I doing wrong? And a day would turn into a week to a month. And all of a sudden, I woke up one morning, I looked in the mirror, and I didn't like the reflection. I was allowing death to define who I was.
Yeah.
So I went to my roommate with the Jets, Kenny Schroy, and I said, "Kenny, you know what? I think I'm going to start a foundation. Start a foundation for terminally ill children." And then I met with a guy by the name of Bill Gibney. He was a former Marine. He said, "I'll help you, but it's not a one and done." And I said, "What do you mean a one and done?" He goes, "You're going to continue to do this throughout, your playing days. And then when you're done playing, I would hope that you're going to continue." And I said, "Yeah." So first thing you have to do is get licensed as a 501c3 nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any money. So I decided to talk to my wife. I said, "You know what? All the speaking engagements I'm going to do, I'm going to donate the money back." And I would be up there and I would be brought to tears talking about that week. And then I said, "You know what? I want to start a foundation for terminally ill children. I want to give them their greatest wish in life.
Yeah.
I want to take their greatest wish and make it reality. I want to make these kids feel important, even if it's just for a day."
Yeah.
I said, because I had that feeling every time I ran out on the field in Alabama, every time I ran out on the field with the Jets. So I would tell the people, I need your help. I need your help. I need you to accept my mission as your mission, and let's do it together. And I would walk out and somebody would shake your hand and you'd feel that little tuck and they go, "I hope this helps." And pretty soon I had enough money for my first wish. A 17-year-old boy named Steven. Steven had lymphoma. And he was so strong. We had a press conference. Mr. Hess, who owned the Jets, my teammates, we were there for the press conference. And unfortunately, Steven passed away before we could grant the wish. But now we were out there in the eyes of the public.
Yeah.
So fast forward, here it is 43 years later, we're now in 14 states. And we've raised over $44 million. And we've helped over 8,600 families, which tells you there's a lot of kids out there that need our help.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've learned from these kids is, you know, you don't have to fear dying. If you believe in God and you have faith, when you do die, you're going to be rewarded. You're going to get to see everything that you believed in.
Yeah.
So it's been special. These kids know that they're here for a reason.
Yeah.
And for some reason, because they're not normal, maybe they're in a wheelchair, people have a tendency not even to listen to them, to walk right by them. But they have a story.
Yeah.
And they want it to be heard. They want it to be told. So they allow the foundation to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of the work.
Yeah.
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 Everybody has accomplished. It's not, my name may be on it, but
Right.
there's hundreds of people that have played their role, either been a donor, either been a volunteer. And I tell people, if you don't have money, you don't have time, give us your thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
God's going to answer your prayer one day and give us back one that we thought he should take.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a living example of proof that the work you're doing, it has meaning.
So if somebody wanted to donate or volunteer, how could they go about
They
doing
just
that?
go to martylyonsfoundation.org. And you can go there. There's a number. You can call into the foundation. I have a staff of 4 people.
Okay.
For, I would say, the first 25 years, I didn't have a single paid employee. Everything was done by a volunteer. And then all of a sudden, I said to the board, I said, you know what? I believe in the theory, if you want to make money, you got to spend money.
Yeah. You do.
And I said, I think we can do more for the kids that we want to help if I get an executive director. So I hired an executive director. Then I hired a wish coordinator. Then I hired an event coordinator. And with all those salaries that we have, we're still able to give back 84 cents out of every dollar to the kids. So I'm taking 16 cents and building the staff.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's great. And I can already tell how much that truly means to you and how, and like I said yesterday, Peanut, you liked it so much. I'll say it again. Once you're affected by something, you'll become an advocate for it. And so that 6 days in your life in 1982 changed your life, and you created this foundation. And then 2 short years later, you were recognized as the Man of the Year. And now it is called the Walter Payton Man of the Year. But
Right.
how much pride do you take in that, being recognized as that one of the first ones to get it, and what that award truly means, and that you were actually recognized, but we're actually getting to tell the story of all these young people that you got to help?
Well, you know what, Roman, I think when I accepted the award back then, and I'll say it again, it might have had my name on it.
Yeah.
But really, it was an award that was given to all the kids from the foundation. I just happened to accept it on behalf of them and all the volunteers. And that's the way I've always looked at it. Whether it has my name on it or the foundation name, those kids are special.
Yeah.
And I just happen to be the one representing them. So to be, Walter Payton meant so much to the NFL, but he meant so much into the community. When I received the award, it was the Miller Lite Man of the Year.
Wow. I don't think I knew that.
There wasn't many of us that got it from Miller Lite. And, there was a few fringes that went with Miller Lite too. I got to go to quite a few of their events. And, you could pull into any distributorship and you get 50 cases of beer and you have yourself a nice party. But it was nice that
I didn't either.
it was nice that it was transferred over to recognize somebody that meant so much to
Yeah.
the NFL, not just as a Hall of Famer, but as an individual that took time to make sure he gave back to the community. So as soon as they switched it over, I called the NFL and I said, you know what, my plaque says Miller Lite. We peeled it off and we put Walter Payton on there.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I like that. So we've asked this question to numerous guests on the podcast. Mount Rushmore. If you had your own personal Mount Rushmore of people of influence, guidance, and you get to pick 4, who would those 4 people be?
Well, first you pick God, because God blessed us all with the ability to play the game of football.
Mm-hmm.
So the good Lord would be up there first. I think Coach Bryant would be up there because he influenced me. And then my parents. They really sacrificed.
Yeah.
Coming from a family of 7 kids.
Yeah.
5 boys, 2 girls. They believed in religion and education, athletics. I don't think one or the other or both ever missed a game with all of us playing.
Yeah.
And I remember going and watching my older brother, who was an outstanding basketball player, went to West Point. I was 6 years younger than him. And I said, boy, he's pretty good. I want to be like him.
Yeah.
If I'm like him, I'm going to be good.
Yeah.
But if I'm better than him, I'm going to be recognized. And then my other brother, Dan, played basketball at Loyola, but he was a football player. He was 2 years in front of me. And as going to a small Catholic school, 1A, you got maybe 28, 30 players. And, so they would always move some of the freshmen up to the varsity just during practice so we would get our ass kicked. And my brother was one of those
bodies. They needed more bodies.
They needed more bodies. And my brother was one of the guys up there. So, I didn't love football. I didn't have the passion for it.
Really?
I didn't understand the coaches. That, we had a coach by the name of Bill Clyer, and we used to run that hamburger drill. And
what's the hamburger drill?
That's when you have 2 dummies laying on the ground. You have a linebacker. The quarterback hands you the ball. You got to run it between the 2 dummies, but this guy's coming straight at you.
Oh, okay.
He knows exactly what
he knows it, and you got to stay inside the dummy. And Coach Clyer grabbed me by the face mask, and he said, there's nobody out here that can tackle you. And I ran the ball and run it again. Got smacked the 3rd time. Run it again. And he kept grabbing me by the face mask. He says, you know what? You got to remember, there's nobody that can tackle you. Well, finally you get to somebody and you run him over and he grabs you by the face mask again. He goes, that's the way you got to think. Nobody can run you. Nobody can tackle you. Well, next morning, my brother Dan got up and he said, come on, we got to go to practice. I said, man, I quit. He said, what do you mean you quit? I said, man, Coach Clyer yesterday didn't even realize that the first 3 guys tackled me, and he kept telling me, nobody out here can tackle you. I don't need this. And my brother Dan says, you know what? If you quit now, you'll continue to quit the rest of your life. Now get your ass out of bed. We're going to practice. And he was right. And Coach Clyer was right too, because as a running back, you got to have that mentality.
Right.
Nobody can tackle you. And then my sophomore year, I had a coach named George O'Brien, and he took an interest in sending game films out. to all the colleges and said, hey, this kid can play. He saw more in me than I saw in myself. So my junior year, there was some recruits. Yeah. And you're talking about a small Catholic school. And going, hey, you know what? The coach from Florida State, Doug Dickey, is in the stand today watching, Marty Lyons. And I didn't look at myself as somebody special. I could play. Mm-hmm. And then my senior year, I started getting recruited and went to a lot of the SEC schools. And a lot of these schools were saying, hey, you know what? You come here, you can start. I go, wait a minute. There's only 30 guys on my team. We're a 1A, and you're telling me I can start here at Tennessee? I can start here at Florida? And then I went to Alabama, and I sat down with Coach Bryant. Coach Bryant was pretty honest. He said, son, he goes, we want to give you a scholarship. He goes, I can't make you any promises, but if you're good enough to play, the opportunity will be here. And that's why I chose Alabama. Because all I wanted to do was have the opportunity. Yeah. And then as you mature and you go through life, you realize that that's what life is about, opportunities and choices. Hmm. Some of us are going to make good choices. Some of us are going to make choices that aren't going to be beneficial, but we learn from them. Right. And we have to keep reiterating to our children and the people that we talk to is have enough faith in yourself that with every opportunity that presents itself, you're willing to knock on that door. You don't have to stay there long, but don't be afraid of opportunities. If you have enough confidence in yourself and you believe in yourself, if it doesn't work out, pick yourself up, try again. The world we live in it's not a perfect world. We all know where the mistakes are made. Right. But we have to have enough confidence in ourselves to tell the youth of today, which is the future of tomorrow, to have an opinion, to be able to speak up, to be respectful to those that don't agree with your opinion, but don't let their opinion change who you are. Right. Be yourself. Have confidence in yourself. And I enjoy talking and giving that message to the kids. But the Mount Rushmore are the 4 people that gave me that ability, that pushed me, that picked me up, that are still with me today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That was beautiful.
I'm writing some of this stuff.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. We appreciate you being here.
It's been my pleasure,
Marty. Man,
this was awesome.
You have exceeded my expectations. I had already heard great things about you in Tuscaloosa as a former Alabama great and legend yourself. And I know you just stayed up in New York. We never got to get you back down south, but you are thoroughly appreciated. Peanut and I, like we said, we really appreciated your amazing storytelling. Yeah. And we could sit up here and have lunch and listen to you just talk all day long because I know you got great stories. And you tell them so passionately and beautifully as well. And we appreciate your emotions, your candidness, your honesty, because this is why we do this podcast. It's for others to actually get to know who Marty Lyons is. We only heard about you in name and in spirit, and getting to hear your stories. It's been great to listen to your journey.
Well, I really appreciate you allowing me this platform. And, the Man of the Year in 1984, the further you got away from 1984, the more it meant. And for the NFL and Anquan Bolden to invite us back and give us that moment again brings the awareness back to the surface. Yeah. That, we're very blessed. We're very fortunate. And the NFL is a brotherhood.
It is.
And that's the brotherhood of helping one another and caring about one another is really what life's about. We're all here to play the game of life. We're not here to just play football. And I think that the football players that can't make that transition from being a football player back into life, those are the ones that struggle because they're caught in that, time zone of, I'm a football player. Well, yeah, you're a football player, but let me just remind you, you were a football player. I haven't played or put on a uniform since 1990. So you're talking about, 35 years ago. But the day I stopped playing football was the day that life really started. And you had credibility behind you.
Yeah.
And it's been a special moment. And again, coming back to this Super Bowl and Anquan raising the awareness of the foundation and all the other people, all the other players that he recognized, I think it speaks volume on who he is. And I think it speaks volume on what the NFL wants their players to represent and what their players, who they are, and the difference that they can make. We can all make a difference. All you have to do is care.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'll end on that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Marty.